You know, I love these videos where young liberals tell us we should all join their feminist club. Being a feminist is great. Being a feminist is the right thing to do. Everyone should be a feminist. No, you shouldn't. It isn't great. It isn't the right thing to do. It's horrible crap that everyone should see right through and reject for cause. But here we go again with another young liberal that explains what feminism is, at least to him, even though we all ought to know better. And away we go.
Hey comrades, I believe in gender equality.
Well, good for you. I do too. I believe in equality for all, regardless of race, sex, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, social class, etc. That's why I'm an egalitarian.
And that makes me a feminist.
Ooh, I'm sorry. Maybe there's something you can take for that?
There's been a false argument in the media in the past that seemed to suggest that to be a feminist was to believe that women should be put ahead of men.
And all you have to do is listen to many self-proclaimed feminists to see that that's absolutely the case. Now that might not apply to every feminist. After all, feminism seems to be a catch-all description for a whole host of different and often contradictory views, somewhat like libertarian is. However, whether you like it or not, your perception by others is going to be colored by those you choose to surround yourself with, and in the case of feminism, it's really not something you should strive for.
But that's a lie. Feminism is the movement for gender equality.
Not according to a lot of feminists, it isn't. Not according to the founders of modern third and fourth wave feminism, it isn't. This is why it's so important to use the proper labels to refer to your positions. What you're really arguing for here is egalitarianism, not feminism. Feminism started as a movement fighting for equal rights for women, but once it achieved that, people were far too attached to the term feminism to find another applicable term to use in future endeavors. The fight for gay rights, while I'm entirely in favor of it, isn't feminism. The fight for transgender equality, while I'm entirely in favor of it, isn't feminism. The fight against racism, while I'm entirely in favor of it, isn't feminism. All of these things fall squarely under the heading of egalitarianism, which, by definition, is equal rights for all. Feminism is equal rights for women. It's in the bloody name!
There can be some debate over whether that terminology, that label, is an effective one. But I think it comes out of the fact that in the past, women were viewed as the oppressed gender, which is completely accurate because men have dominated in the past and continue to dominate in the present.
Yes, in the past, feminism was necessary because women were, absolutely and without question, the oppressed gender. That isn't the case today. We can find nowhere that women are not every bit as equal to men in an apples-to-apples comparison. However, we can find many instances where men are certainly not equal to women, yet feminism says absolutely nothing about that at all, do they?
But the fight for gender equality isn't just one that benefits women. It benefits everyone wherever they sit on the gender spectrum.
Exactly how does it do that? The fact is that women now outnumber men in universities, but are still considered a target equity group and are still given preferential treatment in admissions programs. Women have more scholarship opportunities just for their gender than men do. Women get preferential sentencing for the exact same crime. Women get preferential treatment in child custody cases and spousal support. The list goes on and on and on of ways that women get treated better than men, but feminists never talk about any of that.
Women are obviously victims of our society in the sense that they get paid less for the same work as men.
No, they don't. That's a lie and has been soundly debunked. The gender wage gap is a complete falsehood. Take it away, Shu.
The wage gap is simply the average earnings of men and women working full-time. It does not count for different job positions, hours worked, or different jobs. It has nothing to do with the same job. It has nothing to do with discrimination.
They are often pushed into low-paying work and care work instead of having the opportunities to reach the same kind of levels in executive management or to pursue careers that require high qualifications that are considered to be traditionally men's work.
They're not pushed into anything. They choose to go into that work of their own free will. Women are welcome to enter any job field they want. Women are welcome to pursue any degree they wish. You can't find a single university major which is for men only. You can't find a single application that was turned down on the basis of the applicant being a woman. It just doesn't happen. But what you feminists are really saying is that women have no agency, that they're just mindless drones doing whatever they think society is telling them. Feminists are sexist. The reality is, women are choosing to go into fields which require less work, that require less education, and that have lower expected pay. And that's their choice. So let's look at that choice, shall we? According to the National Center for Education Statistics, for the 2011 to 2012 school year, the following were the most popular majors for women. Both men and women pursue business administration as their number one choice, although women do so at a rate half as much as men. But below that, women overwhelmingly get degrees in education or social work. The United States government has a division called the Bureau of Labor Statistics that lists the projected income and industry statistics of different careers over the next 20 to 30 years. So let's see how the career paths chosen by men and women differ. Now, we'll ignore business administration for the moment because both pursue it. But as I said, men do so at a rate double that of women. But the next one on the list for women is education. According to the BLS, the mean average wage for a teacher working in a college setting is $54,550. Now, I'm going for college because these are master's degrees we're talking about, and the average for an elementary school teacher is a little higher at $60,490, but there is certainly a range here. I'm just providing some raw data. But for the men's second highest master's degree of 2011 to 2012, we have engineering, which has a median income of $87,940. This means that men who choose to go into engineering at a much higher rate than women are going to make a much higher income. This is a consequence of choice. But it isn't just at the postgraduate level that this is true. Career fields at the bachelor's level show the same pattern. Here, though, while men are still pursuing business administration, which has an average income of $119,460, the top degree program chosen by women is psychology, with a median income of $76,040. Virtually every single degree that women typically choose to get appears on the list of college degrees with the worst return on investment. That's got to tell you something.
Obviously, some of those barriers are being broken down now, which is a great thing, but there are still issues that exist and the equality isn't there.
The equality isn't there, not because of any institutionalized sexism, but because women, by and large, are unwilling to put in the work and get the degrees and spend the time and sweat equity to achieve the same financial success that men can achieve. That's not sexism, that's choice. Maybe you ought to tell that to women wasting their lives in gender studies programs that have virtually no direct application to the job market, that they need to get their asses into STEM fields. See where that gets you.
And then there are larger issues around whether women can control their bodies, access birth control, abortions, and just make decisions about their lives.
Which I think most people agree that they should. Well, most people that aren't religious fundamentalists at least, and those people have some problems. But men should be able to have the same rights, don't you think? Well, not if you ask feminists, because they're not out there fighting against almost automatic infant male circumcision. If anyone dared suggest that we do that to women, the shrieking would be deafening. But when it happens to men, not a peep. And while a woman can opt out of parenthood without having to confer with the father doesn't get that right. He can't say he doesn't want to be a father. The woman has all the control. He can't say he doesn't want to pay for the child for 18 years. The woman can just stick him with the bill, and there's nothing he can do about it. Equality my ass.
But the gender stereotypes that we've created also hurt men. They tell men that they need to be masculine. They can't show their emotions. They need to look a certain way and, in a sense, not really care about how they look. And even though there are a lot of masculine homosexual men, that's generally seen as something that doesn't fit into the masculine identity and is rejected in some sense by the dominant heterosexual male society.
Gender stereotypes, and indeed any stereotypes, only matter if you pay any attention to the stereotypes. Don't do that. But you have to keep in mind that all decisions have consequences, and you have to be willing to deal with the consequences of your actions. There are plenty of men and women out there who pay no attention to gender stereotypes and just deal with it. If that's what you want to do, fine. More power to you. I mean, it's a gender stereotype that men have to fanatically love professional sports. I don't. I can't stand them. The idea of watching a bunch of overpaid prima donnas prancing around on a field throwing a ball to each other is idiotic. The whole idea is stupid, and I don't care who knows I can't stand sports. I don't watch sports. I don't play sports. I don't care about sports. People need to get the fuck over themselves.
And then if we consider people who fall elsewhere on the gender spectrum, particularly trans people, they lack even basic protections that men and women can expect. In many places, they can be fired from their work without reason, and they can also be denied important healthcare that they need, particularly assistance with transition if that is something that they choose to do.
First off, I entirely disagree that they shouldn't have the same protection under the law based on their gender as everyone else. Gender is a strict scrutiny category under the law, and it ought to apply equally to everyone, including transgendered people. No one ought to be discriminated against because of their gender identity. That said, though, what I think he's really talking about here is getting someone else, most likely the taxpayer, to pay for gender reassignment surgery, and that's not something that I will ever agree with. I don't care how you feel about your gender. It's still elective surgery, and like elective plastic surgery, should be your responsibility or your insurance's responsibility to fund whatever changes you want to make to your body. It's your personal responsibility, not society's, to make those changes and pay for them.
So feminism isn't about replacing the patriarchy with a matriarchy.
Well, that's because the patriarchy doesn't exist. It's a boogeyman made up by radical feminists to point fingers at and blame for all their woes.
Maisie Williams, the actress who plays Arya in Game of Thrones, recently suggested that we should call people normal or sexist instead of using the term feminism.
Well, how about you just stop labeling people and deal with individuals, not groups? Maybe that's a good idea, you think?
And I think that's kind of a great idea. If we consider the fight for racial equality, there's not a term for people who necessarily support that. You're just considered normal if you do.
Well, actually, they've traditionally been called civil rights advocates. In the 50s and 60s, being racist was the norm. It was accepted and expected in lots of places. If it was normal to be in favor of racial equality, then nobody would have had to have taken to the streets and protest, and Martin Luther King Jr. wouldn't have had to have a dream. The reason people are starting to turn on the word feminist is because it's gained a really awful reputation, and less than 20% of Americans identify with the word. We already have a perfectly good word to describe what a lot of YouTube feminists claim they want, and that word is egalitarianism. It is not feminist.
Whereas if you believe that one race is better than another, you are called a racist.
Well, there are a lot of feminists who believe that one race is worse than all the others, thus making them racists. Thanks for clearing that up for us.
I am a feminist. I do believe in gender equality.
Then you're not a feminist. You're an egalitarian. Thank you.
And I think everybody should, because it's something that would benefit everybody, not just women, not just trans people, men as well. Anyone, anywhere on the spectrum has something to gain from gender equality and the breaking down of the gender stereotypes that we've created.
Well, I think everyone should be an egalitarian too. It would do away with a lot of the racism and sexism and outright hatred that we get from outspoken feminists who don't really care about equality. They just couch their arguments in a way to fool the rubes.
Comrades, if you do feel some reservation about calling yourself a feminist, I want to tell you that you shouldn't do that.
Oh, yes, you should. That's like saying you shouldn't feel bad to call yourself a Nazi. These words are toxic for a reason. They've been made this way by people who've used them for negative purposes.
Being a feminist is simply believing in the equality of the genders, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That's still wrong. That's being an egalitarian. And if being a feminist is about believing in the equality of the genders, why do they spend so much time talking about race and religion? Those aren't genders.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
Well, thanks for convincing me once again that feminists have no clue what the hell they're talking about. Every time I hear one of these videos from these self-professed feminists who tell us that feminism means something that clearly it doesn't, it makes me wonder if they pay any attention whatsoever to their own side. Clearly they can't, or they wouldn't make the claims that they do. Or maybe they're just living in their own personal echo chamber where only their own ideas matter. In that, they're like the religious, who pick and choose which part of their holy books to pay attention to and which parts to entirely ignore because they're inconvenient. But you can't just ignore reality and pretend it isn't there. If atheists were out there in large groups, goose-stepping down the street, burning down churches and hacking up the religious with machetes, I'd be a fool to insist that there's nothing wrong with atheism. It's just not believing in gods. I'd have to address the massive problem. But feminists don't want to do that. They want to pretend that everything's okay, the birds are singing and the bees are humming, and it'll be A-okay if they just keep repeating that feminism is about gender equality for all. But it's not. You can't be part of the club and blindly pretend that the club isn't engaging in these horrific activities and hate-filled rhetoric left and right. It is. It's engaging in a purposeful disinformation campaign to mislead people into thinking things like the gender wage gap is real, that women are being oppressed, that black people are being shot by the cops for the fuck of it, etc. These things are just wrong. They're false. And to be part of the feminist club, you have to put on your ideological blinders and pretend that everything is hunky-dory and the world will be a better place if we all just strap on those same blinders and play along. But no thank you. No fucking way. A lot of us see feminism for what it is, not for what you desperately wish that it was. It's a hate-filled liberal ideology dedicated to turning the tables and seeking revenge. It isn't about equality. It's about punishing the perceived boogeymen of the past, and so long as that's true, we're not going to take part. We can see through your lies. We see what you're doing, and not only do we not agree, we vehemently oppose it. You can claim to be bringing sunshine and rainbows to the world. We know you're just carrying a suitcase of liberal turds, and we're not going to go down without telling the world the reality of what feminism actually is.